Right team, Resident Evil is dying. Again. We need some new, good ideas. Go! I have an idea. How about Leon rides a nuke to kill his grandfather? How about we make Ashley and Ada team up and they have to fight zombies in a tropical setting, so they wear bikini swimsuits and they have to fight them by using powers of volleyball? Amateurs. I have a great idea. One word. Meth. What? Well, you know, meth heads, crackheads. Well, I mean, drug addiction is really scary and it is a huge problem, but I don't think that's the right direction for a Resident Evil game. Yeah, but what if meth heads that actually weird mold people in swamps? This man requires a raise and a corner office. You, sir, are a genius. Seriously guys, I have been playing video games for now about 3 decades and Resident Evil 7 is one of my favorite games ever. Not only one of my favorite horror games or Resident Evil games, no, it's just up there with the best gaming experiences I have ever had, because it is such a great horror game that mixes action and thrill together in such a good way. I just love it, and the more I look at the game, the more I play it, the more I fall in love with it. Let me explain. So, Resident Evil is one of the longest running gaming franchises that is always kinda there. It rivals Mario, Zelda and other long-lasting series. There have been so many mainline games, spin-offs, ports, remakes, remasters and side projects like comic books and the strange movie series that started quite alright and ended, well, let's say we were just happy that it ended, right? And then there was that other movie and that TV series and bunch of other stuff. And well, let's just say, overall, games are so much better.
You sure about that?
But I love how not protective about their IP they are. And say what you want about Capcom, but these guys are good with two things. Not being afraid to experiment and not giving up on franchises. When other developers and publishers flush series if they sell one copy below their target, Capcom will just go back to the drawing board and come up with something new, because they understand. It's not the franchise. We just messed up.
It's not you, it's me.
So that is how this story starts out as well. They released Resident Evil 6 or Resident Evil Giraffe. And well, no one liked it. Well, not really. It was not that bad. Actually, it is a competent game because Capcom are competent developers. But it was in the direction no one wanted from a Resident Evil game. Basically, it was too much action-oriented, not scary enough, while at the same time scary enough to keep people away who avoid spooky games. So basically, the demographic that wanted action game with slight spookiness and were willing to deal with Resident Evil convoluted story was very small. So, despite being an okay game, it was met with general So, they knew this was the time for another shakeup, just like they did last time when franchise was in trouble and Shinji Mikami created Resident Evil 4. It has been said that following the release of Resident Evil 6, Capcom conducted eternal discussions regarding the direction of the next game. A test version of the game developed in 2013 featured a more action-oriented gameplay, similar to that of Resident Evil 6. This version featured Leon Kennedy and Sherry Birkin battling zombies in Venice, Italy, with a Telltale Games-inspired choice mechanic. I don't know if this had potential or not. I generally believe that any idea can be made good or bad, so I won't be judging this by the scant amount of information we have, but I will say that I am super happy with what we got instead. And it turns out Evil Dead creators Sam Raimi and, well, Bruce Campbell can pin another medal to their chest because Evil Dead inspired Resident Evil 7. The rundown location, the cabin look, the main character who loses his arm. Well, I mean, Ethan is nowhere near as cool as Ash because Ethan is a wet rag, but still, I mean, it's pretty cool to look at it, and when you know that Japanese Capcom devs were inspired by Evil Dead, you see the references all over the game, and I think that is pretty cool. So, executive producer Yun Takeuchi, who previously had the dubious honor of trying to follow Shinji Mikami's RE4 with Resident Evil 5, knew they had to scale down. So they got to work, and this time they also had a new gorgeous engine to work with. And the game was directed by Koshi Nakanishi, who previously helmed Resident Evil Revelations, leading a development team numbering about 120 of staff. Capcom's engine must be one of the best looking in the market still. I just love the way Resident Evil remakes and Devil May Cry 5 look. So anyway, in January 2017 we got the game, and oh boy did we got it. It got great reviews, and only the most picky of pickiest did not give very high scores. But so what's so great about it? Why even now, 7 years later, it still is a masterpiece that has yet to be beaten in a lot of areas? Well, I think it boils down to one word: horror. Whoa, wow, what a revelation. A horror game, that is scary. Tell me more. Tell me more, you smart person. Well, no, but... Well, yes, I mean, it sounds dumb when I put it like that, but I think it's so good because it stems from 3 different but connected ways horror in this game is created. Because not a lot of horror games are actually horrible. They are not scary. Most of these horror games rely on cheap jump scares that really do not deliver anything more. But Resident Evil 7 definitely does something more. So let's dive into it. The house. One of the cornerstones is the design of the house and, well, most of the game's environment, except for the salt mines. That is just a Doom level, but more on that later. So what I mean by the house is they created amazing environment that is placed in a very unique location. We don't have a lot of games that take place in Louisiana swamps. We certainly have poison swamps, but Miyazaki's fetish for them is totally different. This is something else. It's the gothic horror swamps. Here we have a very real feeling location. Now, I have never been to that part of the world, but from the first second of the game I can feel and smell the damp, hot air. You just know that it's one of those days where you feel dirty just the second you leave the shower. And the house as well. I can smell the wet, musty, rotten wood of the starting area. It smells stale, everything is grimy and dirty. I feel like every surface Ethan touches would be disgusting and slightly wet. The air is hard to breathe in the house, but outside is no better. And they do a very good job of making environments feel like they belong together. It really is a wonderful, holistic horror environment. But also we have sound. The family that I will speak more about in a moment taunt you. Their voices stay with you. You just don't feel safe. Floorboards creak and there are sounds in the house that combine so well with the very ambient music that follows you around. It is a masterful horror setting.
Here, piggy, piggy, piggy.
The family. The second part, of course, is the characters. Well, the family. Ethan is as interesting as a wet rag, and the girlfriend we rescue is not much better. Also, her face is kinda weird. Capcom had to polish a bit their skills with the engine. But besides the point, the family steals the show. They are so unhinged, so unbalanced. The first scene with them is iconic. Sure, you can say that there are a lot of elements taken from Chainsaw Massacre movies, Rob Zombie general style, but all great artists steal. There is no shame in taking and remixing stuff you love from other works of art. You just need to do it well. And they sure did. the madness, the emotional swings just keep you off balance. You feel so unsafe. I know it is a dumb TikTok way of describing something, but it's made very intentionally here. It's made in a way you just can't really understand what is going to happen next. Everything is so unhinged. So even though you are safely sitting in your own room playing the game, you just don't feel safe. You can't relax. And that is what makes the family great. The starting scene is so impactful. Like, it is so horrifyingly weird and disgusting that it just stays with you. Just like any good horror movie characters. Just like any good scene from a horror movie. Individually, the family members are great as well. Even the good daughter Zoe, who helps us escape. Because this game has so few characters, as opposed to Resident Evil 5 or especially Resident Evil 6, you feel more isolated, more in the power of the Baker family, and of course that adds to the horror. And like I said, the big part of what keeps you off balance is the different personalities and how the family personalities reflect in their own, let's say, areas and their challenges that they give you. Stalkers and corridors. And so the third part is, of course, gameplay. While I generally prefer games in third person, I must admit this one is special because of the choice to make it in the first person. Because Ethan is barely shown as a character, we can freely project ourselves in the game, and so the horror becomes more personal. Everything we experience, we feel from our own eyes. Like I said, I can feel the damp and musty air. The other part, of course, is the formula they will repeat very well in Resident Evil 2 Remake, a bit in Resident Evil 3, is the balance of stalker boss areas and somewhat more actiony sections. After Resident Evil 5 and 6, the team understood that Resident Evil games work better when they are at least partly limited to a larger area where you can go back and forth, sort of Metroidvania style. We do one puzzle to get an item that will help us with the puzzle in the other map, and so on and so forth. And stalker enemies here work to increase the level of fear. While that type of Metroid-style puzzle gameplay can easily get tedious and boring, Madman with an axe definitely livens up the mood. So, another point for Resident Evil. And it keeps you on the edge, and that's what good horror games need to do. They have to make you feel unsafe every second. They have to keep you on the edge. They have to mix things up. And there is the other part, of course. Mold monster shooting part that helps to ease tension a bit because you can actually fight and kill them. I prefer the Resident Evil balance of that you sometimes can fight and sometimes you must fight. I really like how they mix and match these things together. And I already mentioned how the game keeps you off the balance with characters, but it does the same with the gameplay. When you just get used to one type of a gameplay in one area, you get something slightly different, like hiding from the dad changes into fighting the monsters, sneaking after mom changes into Lucas Saw style escape room. And of course the controversial final quarter of the game, the ship that is a pretty scary part, if somewhat tedious, and salt mine that is just a Doom level, and I think it works as catharsis for the game, as you have been running, hiding and being afraid for your life this whole game, and then they give you quite a lot of weapons, you are quite strong now, and then you can just Doom it out. It works as a release, as the final chapter where you are the victorious hero. So, again, I think the Resident Evil 7 has a perfect horror pacing. I really love this game. So, all of these three things come together to make one of the best horror experiences. I have replayed the game multiple times and I still get scared, even though you have some areas that stalkers can't enter and generally the game is pretty short, still every replay feels exciting. While I liked Resident Evil 8, I actually think it was a bit of a step down into the wrong direction after stellar Resident Evil 7. It again went too much to the action side, in my opinion. They shifted from blood-stopping nightmare in a rotten house to spying on buxom ladies. But still, a pretty cool game. I really like Resident Evil 8 as well, don't get me wrong, it's just Resident Evil 7 is so much better as a horror game. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and write down in the comments which of the Resident Evil games is your favorite game and why you agree with me or why you disagree with me. And I will see you in some time. Bye!